Welcome to Brush Lettering Uppercase Alphabet Part 2, the second in a two-part video series showing you how to draw uppercase brush letters using Sakura of America's koi coloring brush pens. My name is Erica Pinto and I'm a hand lettering artist from Toronto, Canada. The supplies I'll be using in this video are an assortment of koi coloring brush pens, the Brush Lettering Uppercase Alphabet and Blank Guidelines worksheets, which you can download from the Sakura of America website, and some sheets of tracing paper. This video is a continuation of Brush Lettering Uppercase Alphabet Part 1. In this video, I'll take you through the uppercase letters N through Z. So let's pick up where we left off. Letter N begins with a small swash along the ascender line, followed by a full pressure stroke down toward the baseline. Next comes a large overturn that transitions into a thin exit stroke once you move the pen back to the baseline. Here are those strokes put together. Letter O begins halfway between the waistline and the ascender line with full pressure. As I approach the baseline, I reduce the pressure and move up the right-hand side of the oval with a thin curve. At the top of the oval, I gradually increase pressure and move down the right-hand side, ending with a thin curved line that stops about halfway between the baseline and the waistline. P begins with a swash, followed by a full pressure stroke. Then I draw a thin stroke from the baseline up to the ascender, round the curve, applying pressure on the pen as I go. At the end of the stroke, I reduce the pressure on the pen and gently connect the curve to the rest of the letter at the waistline. Uppercase Q resembles the shape of a 2. Beginning with a bit of pressure at the waistline, I move the pen in a curved motion down and to the left, reducing pressure as I go and transitioning to a thin curve upward. At the ascender, I start to apply pressure again and move the pen down toward the baseline, where I create a thin loop and move right into a curved exit stroke. Here it is again. Letter R starts like the letter P with a thin swash, followed by a full pressure stroke down to the baseline. This is followed by a thin stroke up to the ascender line, then gradually increasing pressure as I move down the right side of the curve. The bottom diagonal stroke is similar to the one in letter K. I begin at the waistline with full pressure, gradually decreasing pressure as I round it out into a thin exit stroke. Letter S is drawn in a single stroke, starting with a thin curve from the waistline up to the ascender line, a full pressure curve down the left-hand side, followed by a thin, almost horizontal line, and transitioning again into a full pressure curve down to the baseline. At the baseline, I transition to a thin loop followed by a curved exit stroke. Here it is again. Letter T starts with a full pressure stroke from the ascender line down to the baseline, followed by a thin curved stroke along the ascender line for the arm of the T. Letter U begins with a swash followed by a large underturn from the ascender line to the baseline and back up. This is followed by a full pressure stroke that curves at the bottom and transitions to a thin exit stroke. Letter V begins with a swash, followed by an underturn variation. It starts with full pressure down and is a little bit more pointy at the base than the one in letter U. I move back up the right-hand side with a thin upstroke to the ascender line, then loop back down to the waistline, applying a little bit of pressure on the way down. Letter W begins with a swash and then an underturn stroke, but instead of bringing the stroke all the way back up to the ascender line, it ends at the waistline. This is followed by another underturn from the waistline down to the baseline, and then all the way back up to the ascender. Just like with letter V, I finish with a loop back down to the waistline, applying a bit of pressure on the pen on the downstroke. Letter X begins with a thin swash, followed by another underturn variation. This underturn is a bit wider than the one for the letter U, and it ends at the waistline. The diagonal stroke is thin and curved and begins just below the waistline, moving up to the ascender line. Letter Y starts out like a U, with a thin swash followed by a large underturn stroke. This is followed by a descending stem loop from the ascender line down to the descender line, and transitioning back up into a thin exit stroke. Finally, we have letter Z. This letter starts off with a long curved stroke along the ascender line. This line should be longer than the entrance swashes I drew for letters like X and Y. This is followed by a full pressure stroke down on a diagonal, which transitions to a thin loop at the baseline and moves into a long curved exit stroke. Finally, I add a shorter curved stroke along the waistline. This completes brush lettering Uppercase Alphabet Part 2. I hope you enjoyed this video series. Brush lettering is a beautiful art form that requires time and practice, so use the worksheets and guidelines to help you as you practice, and make sure to move slowly through each step. Thanks so much for watching. For more brush lettering photos and videos, you can visit my website or Instagram account.